completely, you know, he just goes nuts. I mean, he's always done like 360-degree turns, dolphin leaps. He bites you in the butt. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
my
it's
grandfather has a few pit bulls.
crazy house. So since it's been going a little bit later, I thought I'd do this.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering why you're still over at your work.
Anyway, let me see if you can. I'm going to test my audio here. Can you just say a couple words?
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I think I need to test my audio here. I think I need to put it back in here. There we go. There we go. Okay, it's external speakers. Okay. There. Yeah, now I should be able to hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. How's it been going?
Oh, it's been going all right. I took the time to draw a dream image last night with great care.
Yes.
I made a little wager with my daemon or what have you. I said, all right, I'll draw this, but I can do whatever the heck else I want to do tonight. And it agreed.
Yeah, well, let's see it.
Yeah, this is it was on that water dream list of dreams that I sent people, but
yeah,
it's this face that was carved into the wall of the cave that my friend Michael showed me.
Exactly.
With the Capricorn horns. Thank you.
Yeah, it's absolutely lovely. Now, can you add some color to it?
Well, I wanted to, but it was just a carving on like a stone, like a white stone wall.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of make it look like that.
Well, you could at least put a little gray and black.
Yeah, I have a little bit of shading, but it doesn't come through very well.
Okay.
Yeah, like if
I think I need
it in person.
Yeah.
Well, I need to get a scanner so that I can just scan my images and.
Yeah. Well, what I do is just take a picture of it with my phone, and you know, I mean, I used to have scanners. I do have a scanner, but I you know, it's so much easier to take a phone. But what I'm going to be, I mean, I've been one of the things that came out recently was the Audible Red Book, you know, and you know, it's so important, you know, to do this work. I mean, well, what he says, and this is his Jung's favorite confidant was named Carrie Baines, and one of the things Jung said that, or he said in the Red Book, that there is no event in our life that doesn't have an image associated with it. So, you know, every event, if you can't find the image within it, then it's devoid of meaning, you know. And if we don't, so all of meaning is based on the images from dreams and active imaginations. So without those images, we are empty vessels, you know, with no meaning, no purpose, you know, that's not any. Hey, Gary, I was just having Charles was just showing me his drawing of. Why don't you show that again?
Yeah.
Drawing of the cave, rock carving on the cave. Can you just recite that?
Yeah, I mean,
how they found the rock carving?
Yeah, well, I was in a cave filled with water, and I was kind of just like treading water in the cave. There's a few people there, but my friend Michael, who's a professional animator, he was there, and he says that he wanted to show me this. So we dove down into the water, and this face was carved on the wall, and it kind of took like a cinematic view to where I could only see like it just, the camera kind of just like went up like that. And I said, oh yes, I know that, it's from the time of Capricorn, and described it as very haunting. And that was actually during the time where, the dreams that I'd been bringing in on Wednesday, it was during that time when I would wake up from my dreams totally terrified. And that was the worst. That was
Yeah.
horrifying to wake up from for whatever reason.
Well, and again, my wife always has really. She's been. She actually got a Jungian analyst this week.
Wow.
Last week, and so she's trying to get her dreams together, and she was telling me that she'd never had animal dreams. And I said, well, you're very instinctive, you're already very instinctive, where I am not instinctive, so I tend to have a lot of animal dreams. I'm sort of this, there's just this air spirit, without a body or groundedness or whatever, and so part of my healing function is to return to the earth, and that's why, Gary, too, I thought we'd start a little bit on there's this book, The Living Symbols, about 450 pages, but Gary Sparks, who was a student of Marie-Louise von Franz, always starts every one of his little sessions with a dream, so I thought we'd just keep going through this Sherlock Holmes mystery, but I think we got like 6 sessions before the red book comes out, or the black books come out, and I thought we'd just go through the black books. And what really got me going on this was Maggie's here, was the Audible. Hi, Maggie. Yeah, is the Audible Red Book came out recently. Hi, Maggie, and I've been listening to it, and it's just such a good way to listen to the Red Book. And so I'm listening to all this fabulous advice that Jung gives in the preface on active imagination, and really, the one thing there's one of his really good students was the one he most respected, the one he wanted to do his biography, and he was very disappointed when she didn't do it, because she was one of the few people that could talk to him on an equal level. Was Carrie Baines. Her original name was Fink, Carrie Fink. She married a guy named Jamie D'Angulo, who was a artist in New Mexico, and he was also friends with Mountain Lake. I think that was part of the how Jung met Mountain Lake, was through this Jamie D'Angelo. But so her daughter is named Ximani. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Xiamane, who has a ton of firsthand information about Jung that's unpublished. But anyway, Carrie Baines was reading the Red Book, and the part that she liked the most, and she said why it needed to be published, this is back in the 20s and 30s, was Jung's Jung's unconscious told him that just having the world is only one half of the reality. Every event, every experience, everything we do also has an image attached to it, and this is the world of soul. And like he would say, if you see something in nature that you think is very beautiful, it's not beautiful unless you have an image within you that tells you it's beautiful. I mean, the donkey doesn't think it's beautiful. It's more utilitarian for them. But so this really inspired me. and the black books are going to be coming out on the black books will be coming out on.
I forget, the black book led up to the red book, or it followed it?
Well, it's actually the original material, so it's got all the outtakes, and a lot of the outtakes in it are from about Jung's God is Phanes. The idea of Jung too is that was very Gnostic, and so the his idea of reality was that there was there's something called the pleroma, which is the fullness of all possibilities. It's where the opposites exist before they become opposites. So anyway, he I don't know if I'm going to be able to have this on YouTube. I'm getting a kind of an error message. Anyway, we'll see. I'm recording it, so it'll be on later. Hi, Marina. How you doing? Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just getting started here. I'm not sure if this thing is going to go on YouTube or not. I can record it later.
Did last week's go on YouTube?
Yes, it did. Yeah. It did. Yeah. I can send a link later. But anyway, so I was saying that I thought what we do is do this living symbol for keep doing it, but just maybe do a couple dreams a week, but then get ready for the black books, which will be released on October 13th. So, I think we'll be able to start going through it on October 18th, which is the Sunday following, and going through it. But one of the things Jung says in there, amongst all that just unbelievable wisdom, and he says he doesn't have anything to do with it, but is that this world that we see is not beautiful unless it's attached to an image, and our life is not meaningful unless it has this image, and this is this middle realm soul, and so there is this aspect of that we are vessels, empty vessels. That's the way we're constructed, and what we're to be filled with is the images of the unconscious. And they always say God always speaks mythologically. He always speaks in images, and that the pleroma is the realm of images. Hi, Adam and Kevin. Both. How you doing? Well, anyway, I think I'll yeah, great. I think I'll get started. I've been kind of getting started, but what I thought I'd do is I'm going to do. We'll be working with the living symbol, but we'll get ready for the black books, which our first session on those will be on October 18th. So we got about 6 sessions. So I thought what we do is kind of go through Jung's contemporary writings at that point, his letters, and some of the things he wrote. One was on individuation and collectivity, which was written in 1916, and also the Transcendent Function, which we'll go through the Transcendent Function at the end of the session, and I want to make sure we end it. Does anybody before I start have any comments before we get started? Doesn't? Okay. Well, I'm just going to go through this. I think the reason we want to keep going with the living symbol, but I'll only do a couple dreams at a time on it, is because this is genuine material, and it really is a detective novel. So we've got the patient, who is this very intellectual woman who has a mother complex and is separated from the feminine world, and she's totally in. She's separated from both the feminine within herself and the feeling function, and so she's devoid of intuition and feeling. That's what she's devoid of, and the feminine, and she has a very rewarding relationship with her boyfriend, but he's kind of very childish and just wants a mother figure. So she's not really acting in a collective feminine role. He's her surrogate child, So that's why she has these dreams that she's so stony, and she's just trapped in stone, and unconscious buffets her, and so the whole book is how she, how she dissolves and coagulates, I mean, this is a classic alchemical thing. And yet, one thing I noticed too, reading the Red Book, I've been kind of reading it a little bit before the Black Book's come out, is the one thing that's missing in it is, and I think the one reason Jung stopped working on it, is everything that's in the Red Book was in alchemical work. I mean, it's all there. So you're reading something in the Red Book, and you say, that's the divine child, or that's the solutio, or that's the negredo, or whatever. Where Jung is thinking it's more hopeless because it's so black. You're thinking, no, that's not hopeless. It's the negredo. It's the prima materia. So I think what Jung discovered when he started working with Richard Wilhelm and getting very serious about alchemy, and was that everything that was in the Red Book was in alchemy as well. Not everything, but because there's the way that is to come, which is the first section of it, is basically says that it actually is the voice of the Aquarian age, okay? And it's saying that Jung is the last fish and the first water bearer. It really does, if you read what the unconscious thinks of Jung, that's what it thinks of it, not what he thinks of himself, that he's their message bearer, and one thing Jesus was the last ram, or the last lamb, and the first fish, and one of the things the unconscious tells him, amongst others, is that that it was only in the previous month, it says, that we were able to believe in gods. He says, in this month, we can only know them. We can't, but that's what Philemon says, that you can only know the God. You can't believe in it anymore, at least for the people who have left the collective church, or it no longer resonates with them. But anyway, we'll get into, and the idea that I think that is going to be so exciting is that we're empty vessels, and the only thing that can make us full are the images that come from our dreams, our active imaginations, and the unconscious. And if we don't have that half of ourselves, our vessel will never be full. And what it is full of is purposeful meaning, And what's interesting too about that is Jung distinguishes between aesthetic understanding and intellectual understanding. And, you know, I tend to be more on the intellectual understanding, where my wife is more on the aesthetic side. I mean, she doesn't want to know it verbally. She wants to know it viscerally, you know, in her cells and in her heart. And the way she does that is primarily through art, you know, and formulating the unconscious image into either some meaningful symbol that you understand in conceptually, or an artistic symbol that you just behold, you know, behold the image, you know. Well, anyway, just to go through these, the patients, very interesting drawings that she had. The first one was of the uncomfortable tree, you know, and this is the uncomfortable tree. And if you see what it is, it's there are vultures. These are black vultures. They're pulling this leafless tree. All the leaves have been blown off, pulling them upward, pulling them like this. And then below are these arms that are pulling the roots down. So this is what she calls the uncomfortable tree. You know, the symbol of wholeness is filled with great tension, you know, and it's this tension of the pulling down into the unconscious. You know, she had the dream of the sun wheel that was turning in the direction of that political institution that used it, and she was very uncomfortable with it. But what she was uncomfortable with it is because it told her to go down. You know, normally the sun wheel turns in the direction of integration, while hers told her to go in the direction of disintegration, which is dissolving, so she can coagulate. You know, she needs to dissolve her stony attitude, and the only way she can do that is through dissolution, is through disintegration. So her sun wheel needs to turn the other way. And I think it's kind of interesting that and this is, you're listening to an introverted Poeri Turnistocking, but the unconscious pays no attention to our own death. You know, it doesn't care. It doesn't seem to believe in death. It also doesn't really believe in, it isn't involved in the samsara of politics. You know, there's a lot. That's all I'm gonna say. And that was one hell of a political period. What's also interesting about these is she's doing all this in the very darkest days of the Second World War. This was in early 1941. You know, Russia was about to be overrun. All of Europe had been overrun. You know, the only country that was left, the United States hadn't entered the war yet. It looked pretty bleak, you know, particularly in Switzerland, but also in Britain. But anyway, that's this, the uncomfortable tree. And then here is the comfortable tree, which she drew. Again, you know, when she had the two visions that she brought him the one of the, now this is the comfortable tree. Now, if you notice it has, its tree is leafed. It has leaves, and it has, you know, a lot of leaves. And its roots are, look like they are resting. And who's sitting at the root of the tree? The Great Mother. And who's sitting at the top of the tree? It's a crested bird, you know, not the vulture. How would you, you know, they used to say the white dove was the symbol of the soul. But what's a black bat? You know, what's the symbolism of a black bat versus a white dove? Well, what's the symbol of a black vulture versus either an eagle or a dove? Or Roy had that very interesting dream about the shoebill stork, which is kind of a ancient pelican. What is the image of that? Okay. Hello, Jan. We're just getting started here. Just going on the uncomfortable tree, and the difference between the tension, the great tension. Now, do you remember in her dream about the this was the uncomfortable tree being pulled upward? It's leafless. It's being pulled upward by the black vultures. There's 6 of them, and it's being pulled downward by arms. There's 6 arms, and so there's this great tension in this tree, which is the symbol of the wholeness. It's the self. It's the organizing archetype of the inward and outer worlds being combined. But this is not that. But remember her second dream, where the Savior appears, and the Savior is the young boy. That's the positive animus, who sees this whole thing as a exploration exercise. So now here's the comfortable tree, all leafed with the crested bird at the top, the roots very healthy looking, and at the base, this person that is rarely seen in her dreams, a woman. And it's not just any woman, it's a very maternal woman, with her not showing her anima hair. She's showing, she's wearing a scarf. My wife does that whenever she doesn't wash her hair. She's not trying to be pretty. She's just, trying to hide her hair a little bit. But anyway, that's the comfortable tree. So it's compared to the dream where she could not relate at all to the wind and the storms that were buffeting her as this stony thing. She couldn't even, it had no face, no voice, no anything. And she could not, there was no possible communication with it. So it was very bleak. But then we have the young boy who goes to this same place, this place of the abyss, takes the stone with him, and he's going to be Parsifal and find out what happened. So now she has the heroic animus who's going to help her. And one thing that Jung says too, his soul told him, is when we have not become conscious of the soul, it is always projected outwards. And when we're young, it's projected on the parents, the mother. And when we're old, it's becomes part of our feeling function. So anyone in the outer world that awakens our feeling function, it also awakens the projection of either the anima or the animus, and so then it and the soul also tells him it splits into 3, and the 3 is the serpent. This is the unconscious soul, splits into 3. The serpent, and what is the serpent? The serpent is the principle of life. Now, who ended the childlike paradise of Eden? Life did. The serpent. That's who ended it. So life ended ended the childlike paradise where there's no life. It's all just, it's the womb. It's just living in the maternal womb. It was ended by life, and that's represented in the serpent. The other half, or the other third, is the bird, and that's the is not life, but it is something that doesn't touch the earth. It's very airy, So it's a different. And then the middle one is the human soul, and that's the one that tends to be very devilish and elfish, and is represents nature, but it's a nature that's not really friendly to us. It's a nature which causes us to have affect about who it's projected on. In other words, we fall head over heels and infatuated, not in love, but infatuated with that other person. And, Marie-Louise von Franz said that this used to be like the cat howling outside, or the cat howling outside your window that's supposedly in love with you is not in love with you. It's in love with love in itself. You're just you are truly an object. Don't treat me like an object. Well, that's, and I had a woman tell me one time, don't put me on a pedestal. I'm a human being, and I was tending to do that, where I would treat her as not a real living being, but as this goddess. I mean, at least that was what was telling me. Of course, I didn't have very good social skills because I was an introvert, and also, well, when you're an introvert, especially when you're younger, you tend to be very awkward socially, especially if you're a thinking type, which I was, and an intuitive type. You tend not to be very awkward socially. So, when you go out into society, you just make a fool of yourself, and then you say, hey, let's do that again. No, you don't do that again. You avoid it because it's painful. And so you really don't ever develop social skills. So my relationships with, the feminine beings who were my age at that time tended to be very awkward as well. And, the only thing that, this was before I knew, I wish I knew all this, 40, 50 years ago. I could maybe live a different life. But anyway, so you got the comfortable tree and the uncomfortable tree tend to be just representations of her wilderness vision, and then the other vision of the exploration of the way out of it. So the tree is the symbol of uniting above and below, but it's disunited and hostile tension. The tree in alchemy represents both the self does, represents the beginning, the work, and the goal. So it's that anything that unites the above and below does that. And that's what also the soul told Jung, when she told him that she split into three. She said, if you don't unite the above and below, if the above and below are not united in cooperation, in other words, ego and the unconscious images are not in collaboration, then she splits into three. And her middle one, which is the one we're lacking the serpent, and we're somewhat lacking the bird of the three aspects of soul. But so what is dominating us in the unconscious is the unconscious soul, which is this elf-like being, which makes us be just absolute, a cat in heat when we're, interfacing with the opposite sex, usually, typically, but not always. But if I'm sure we've all experienced that. Joseph Campbell, who taught at Sarah Lawrence, he said he thought he had overcome the anima projection. It's an all-girls school. He worked there 40 years, so all his only interactions were with young, attractive women, and he thought he'd completely overcome this projection affect that was, working within him, until he met his book publisher at Random House, who was Jackie Kennedy. That was his editor for his book, and he couldn't. That was something he couldn't handle. She was a little bit too powerful of a hook for the anima projection, But that's just this uniting. If you don't, hi Dawn, how are you? If you don't unite the above and below, she's living in this world of hostile tension. Here are the forces which need to be cooperating to achieve integration. Frustrated, the black vultures pull up, and the what tries to draw us downward draws down, and so it's just being pulled. The comfortable tree shows a different state of affairs. Now, this, she thinks, came from the dream of the tree man. The tree man who was completely clad in tree bark. So she sees him. That's a very helpful dream. When she sees the man in tree bark, compared to the station master and the villainous man who wanted to take her somewhere, but she tricks him, and the one that she cheated, the intuitive man. Remember, she cheats him. He's looking for a vision of light, and she flashes the diamond brooch in his eyes. Well, so she had the station master who won't let her take the journey to the foreign land. The villainous man who looks villainous, but really is not villainous. He's this low-born one who's going to take her where everyone else is going but her, but she mocks him and laughs at him, And then the intuitive psychological man who she cheats. Well, now she meets the man who's clad in tree bark. She's not going to cheat him, How's she going to cheat him? Because he's nature, So this comfortable tree came about or is connected with the tree man, and so it is also where the uncomfortable tree has the air of the masculine. It has the air of logos and differentiation. Parts pulling apart. So it also has the air of what sometimes people accuse Christianity of having, of that we're unperfect, we're imperfect, we need to be perfect. Well, that's really not what our serpent is. Life, which was the one that ended the childlike paradise of Eden. Serpent represents the life force, is asking of us. It is wholeness. It's a uniting the above and below. Christianity doesn't do that. It's not uniting the above and below. But life. And if we don't unite the above and below, then the soul splits into three. There is no middle realm of soul. You've only got the perfect deity and your sterile self, who has, in Christianity, you have no access to inner wisdom. it all comes from the priest and from the Bible. It doesn't come from inside, you know. And then, you know, Jung, Soul tells him that we don't live in that month anymore. We live in the month, the astrological month, where it is impossible to believe in a God. You must know it. And knowing does not mean understanding, because you just experience it within, you know. And we'll get into this more when we get into the black books. But anyway, it's just a very interesting, and how she eventually dissolves and coagulates this thing is pretty interesting as well. Well, let's quickly go through it's the black vultures versus the crested phoenix, the clash of forces versus unity, the negative great mother, which is represented by the black vultures, the negative great mother is Kali. She's the one that eats back bodies. You know, the great mother is nature, and the Sophia is wisdom. And those are the levels of the great mother. The anima, or the feminine transcending, is represented by the either by addiction or by transformation. You know, the bridge to the center. Okay. Well, anyway, then she has the dream, and we'll go through this pretty quickly, of the two men, the younger brother, and she explores the three different aspects of a church. One is the cathedral, which no one sees but her. You know, Gary had a dream where no one sees or hears the center but him. You know, and then then there is the ugly shrine, and this is the only one that the two animus figures see. She doesn't really need the ugly shrine is the conventional church, and then she sees the church, which is only music and a temenos filled with trees. You know, so this is the church of individual experience, and who invites her in there? The old wise woman. So this is one of probably the third women that showed up. The two women analysts, the great mother at the center of the tree, and then the old wise woman who invites her to come into the realm of individual experience, and she resists it. She resists all three, by the way. So none of these forms of religion have yet awoken in her. So there's this attitude that she still is in her cheating mode, where she cheats the intuitive man with the diamond brooch. She's not interested in any one of these either, you know, but at least they're behold the image. That's what happens. So the reason she won't go into the cathedral, which is the collective feminine, you know, and Gerhard Adler says until she accepts the collective feminine, she can't really know the individual feminine either. So she needs to, because she needs to have some relationship with the great mother, which is the collective, you know, before she can become conscious of her own soul. So anyway, it sums up her general religious problem. But why now? You know, again, Adler thinks this has something to do with the tree image. You know, the ego is still in rebellion, as it was in the diamond brooch dream, where she flashes it, where he says so beautifully that as the devil is in rebellion against God, so is her ego in rebellion against the unconscious. And that's the story of us all. So this is really a symbol that what we call the devil is really the willful ego that does not recognize the unconscious and is in rebellion against it. So it's the situation of the uncomfortable tree, which is the situation of the devil in rebellion against, where above and below aren't united. And above and below aren't united in Christianity either, and that's why the devil is in rebellion against God. So to some extent, the uncomfortable tree, the only thing in the uncomfortable tree, they don't have the black vultures. She has the black vultures, and that represents the devouring mother. There's not much spiritual in any of her images anymore. But so the tree man, the maternal woman, the two women analysts, and the old wise woman who invites her, and then the last dream that we'll talk about today is the one about where she's making a ground plan, perhaps of a house of a garden, which several pieces have to be fitted into a given space. And they will go in quite well, but only first it's necessary to draw a circle, showing the points of the compass to give orientation. And she looks for something with which to draw the circle. Okay, well, the circle's the mandala. And what Jung discovered about the mandala, it automatically posits a center. And so he realized what the mandala tells you is that you're not the center. The circle is the center, and the circle represents this non-linear growth, and you need to find this center, and you need the orienting points of the psychic points, the 4 psychic points. So the circle needs to be drawn, needs to show the points of orientation. It automatically constructs its own center. The ground plan and the squared circle represent her both. Again, it represents the work and the goal. The navigational compass shows the 4 points. The feeling of the patient was that without the orientation given by the circle, the house cannot be properly constructed. The part souls can't be fitted into the garden or the house without the 4 orienting points. So it's the ground plan or the 4 orienting points is the undisturbed personality, the one that has united above and below in the comfortable tree, and its part souls, the different pieces, properly fit, and it's symbolized by a circle with its center. And the circle subdivided in 4 points represents the conscious personality. Okay, let's see. We got about 20 minutes left. I just wanted to mention that I'd like to bring in some parts of the Jung's letters and his writings about the production of the Red Book, and because we're going to be speaking about the Black Book, but the one is which is really short. It's only you really don't even have to start until like about paragraph 171 is on the transcendent function. And just to summarize it really quickly, okay, and I'll try to summarize it a little better next time, is the transcendent function, is really where above and below are united. and in an image. Okay. And so the only way that we're going to get the image is if we either take a dream and dream the dream on in active imagination through either drawing it and coloring it. Now, this would be the aesthetic approach, or through amplifying it with associations, but you really need to do both. So, the aesthetic wants understanding, and the understanding needs the aesthetic. I mean, if you don't have the aesthetic, the understanding is a little sterile. If the aesthetic doesn't have the understanding, it's an artist who's a very good artist, but is only a conduit. He's not someone who is found, who is a shaman who can teach us. He can teach us with his art, but he can't teach us with his understanding. And we've all met people like this that are, well, I'm just going to mention one of my favorite artists of all time, Bob Dylan. I mean, one of the most fabulous. I'd put him up. I'm saying the big, great figures of the 20th century in the United States are Duke Ellington and a lot of musicians. In the latter half, and Bob Dylan. If you look at it, we had all these fabulous figures in the United States in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. You had Faulkner and Ernest Hemingway and Gertrude Stein and all these. But in the second half, about all we have is musicians, and that's you might have like Jackson Pollock and Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, but we also have Bob Dylan and Duke Ellington, and I'd add maybe Dizzy Gillespie and Miles Davis and some of these very avant-garde people whose music, whether you like it or not, is linked with something that's not ego-like. So anyway, but when Joan Baez had this great infatuation with Bob Dylan, and she was so disappointed that he was not an idealist. She's an idealist, but he wasn't an idealist. So anyway, I'm just mentioning the fact that if the artists, tends to be this wonderful conduit. I mean, who is a better, Desolation Row, listen to that sometime. Or, It Ain't Black Yet, it's getting dark, but it's not, it's getting, I forget how that goes, but, it's just these beautiful lyrical productions. But anyway, so the transcendent function, basically is you have an aesthetic and the understanding have to be in balance, and you have to unite the above and below. You can't have the uncomfortable tree, so the way, what Jung's soul tells him is you are an empty vessel, that everything has an image. Everything has an image. And if you can't find that image, then you are empty. The only way you fill it is with meaning. That's what soul tells him, or that the world is not beautiful unless you have an image. It's not beautiful to a donkey. It's not beautiful to a horse. It's more, who knows what they think. I often have when I walk my dogs, I come to this very high point, and I had one dog that always wanted to stop at the highest point and look out at the vista, and that always kind of amazed me. There's a very human-like thing to do, and then you have maybe the bowerbirds who make that beautiful. Jung said that nature looks like the combination of an engineer and a foolish poet. You know, I mean, you know what Robinson Jeffers called divinely superfluous beauty. You know, it doesn't need to be that beautiful, but it is. You know, the bowerbird that makes the nest and does the little dances with the wings and has the things on the wings. You know, and the you know the birds of paradise with their tails 20 feet long and their crests and then you know the baboons with the red and blue faces. You know, I mean it's just and then you have these fabulously colored gazelles with their twisted horns. You know, I mean there's all of these fabulous beings in the universe, but anyway, they say beauty without an image. We're at least what you know the Jungians say we're not Homo sapiens. We're not thinking man. We're Homo mythicus. We are image making or meaning making man. You know, you had Homo habilis was handyman. You know, you had Homo neanderthalensis, and there was a few vestiges where human neanderthalensis was buried with they find pollen in Neanderthal graves, and they'd also create axes, ceremonial axes that were bigger than they needed to be. So this was divinely superfluous beauty. You know, it's more beautiful than it needed to be, but it was representing the you know that. But anyway, I thought so the transcendent function, you know, basically is to unite the above and below. The ego is the needs to lend its attention to the image, and then that creates the third thing, which is the what can't occur in nature. It only can occur through the cooperation of, you know, and this is what active imagination is all about. You know, it really is to create the philosopher's stone. And you know, that's the one thing I was saying earlier, when I read the Red Book, the one thing that's missing in it is alchemy, and that's why Jung gave it up, is because he discovered alchemies. I had everything in there. They'd already found out everything he was finding out in the Red Book. Not everything, but because there's unbelievable statements in that book, and we'll find more in the Black Book what Fani says and God's where Jung basically says that God is not is created beings. You know, that's what God is. It's created being. So there is no God. Well, it could be either called Abraxas or Phanes until the serpent releases us from the Garden of Eden and the created beings come into the world, you know, who are bodies, you know, who are life. That is what Jung says we can call God. You know, what we have before is the pleroma, which is the fullness of latent possibilities that could emerge but haven't. You know, so nothing happens. There's no time or space. But anyway, okay. Does anybody have any comments? I'm sorry, I only left you 11 minutes. How about you, Kevin? You're usually not.
I don't really have any comment.
You don't have a comment after all that. Okay. How about you, Gary?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of amazed at all this, you know. So the 4 points that on the circle, that's so you get the horizontal line, which is sort of the, you know, the positive and negative animal or animus, and then the vertical is the you know, the heaven and earth or whatever.
Well, it could be, but it could also be thinking and feeling on the vertical axis, and sensation and intuition on the horizontal axis. You know, those are what they call the perceiving functions. They just happen to us. Where thinking and feeling tends to be a little more conscious. You know, so those are the orientings. They're the 4 points of orientation in the psychic world. But everything is a quaternity. I mean, every image has fourness in it. You know, if you don't have fourness, I mean, this is what you know, spirit without feeling is not anything. It's unless you can combine feeling with spirit, it's not a living image. It needs to have that. How about you, Charles?
Well, it was quite a lot to
Yeah, I'm
take in,
sorry.
honestly, but it's for me coming at just the right time. I keep thinking of the dream that I shared with you and Gary, where I have the car that just keeps crashing over and over.
Yes.
And I think this has just all been such a good example of, just for me, the idea of just, you know, just letting go of the steering wheel. And it was Friday night, I was going through I think a small foreshadowing of a midlife crisis. And it's starting to become very painfully apparent that the ego reins have to be let up.
Well, for all of us, I mean, it's called what's called Wu Wei. You know, which is basically that the reason, you know, Charles was trying to drive these cars remotely, and they kept crashing, you know, and it was just telling him, you know, that the ego's no help to you now. It's not going to get us there. How about you, Maggie? Any comments or thumbs up or thumbs down or whatever? Okay, all right. Well, I know, I'm sorry, it's a little heavy. You know, my wife always tells me that it's, you know, that she is an aesthetic person. So, you know, all these words and stuff, give me an image, you know, that I can work with, you know, that, and let me color it, you know, that's all the understanding that she needs, you know.
Mm.
How about, yeah, go. Yeah.
That's an acting thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so we're kind of opposites. What about you, Marina? Do you have any comments or anything?
Just one really small one, and maybe I'm stating the obvious. That what came to me was, as you were saying, about the Red Book and alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, the Red Book is his part of his individuation, Jung's individuation process. And alchemy is a form of you know, it's the human psychological alchemy of individuation, is to find the gold within. You know, like alchemy is fundamentally, I believe, the transforming of base metals into gold, into something precious. The psychological equivalent is the individuation process, to find the gold within our souls,
Yes.
gold within us. That's all really.
Yeah, and the problem is finding it, because it is gold, yet we ignore it. You know, she says, hey, you give me, anyone who gives me your attention, this is the soul speaking, I will give into your hands the morning star.
Yeah.
And yet she's black and hidden, you know. And why is she black and hidden? It's because the ego is in rebellion against the unconscious. It has no concern whatsoever. It is this empty vessel whose all it's concerned about is gains and losses in the outer world. You know, material existence. How about you, Adam? Any comments?
Sure. Maybe two. One, just going with what we were just talking about. Maybe another image also with the alchemical process is not even necessarily finding the gold, but creating the gold out of like the blackness, say. Mm-hmm. So it's like a transformative, creative process. Just a thought. And the other thing was, it seems like a minor point, but whatever. Don't feel bad, Craig, that I have a different point of view. But just to talk about the idea that like other creatures don't perceive beauty, from the things that you were saying actually make me think that they do. Your dog looking around and.
Well, yes, that's a controversial opinion.
Sure.
But that's what Jung is saying more, that beauty needs an image. So maybe animals do have images. So I think that was a leap for me to say that. I retract it.
Okay.
If I can just add something.
Yes.
Yeah, just from a typological stance, I feel also, I think it's most people already feel like they can agree, not everyone, but most Jungian would diagnose Carl Jung as a dominant introverted intuitive type. And so for him to, so I feel like, we cannot escape the fact that while we are trying to do something, there will always be a sense of projection, whether it's dream analysis, whether it's a red book or whatever it is. There will always be this projection. Even Jung says, you think you have understood something or others, but you really just have understood yourself. And this is like, I feel like somewhat with Jung also, it's like everything has to be filled with meaning, which is I feel like a very introverted, intuitive statement. In the same way Descartes says, I think, therefore I am, And so, like for me, as an INTP has dominant introverted thinking, like for me, I even have to conceptualize God, if that makes sense. For me to even make sense or start making sense, obviously, there will be a point where I realize, I am hitting a wall, basically, with my lenses. You have to let go somewhat. So I feel like these statements are like, from a typological sense of view, they are just lenses. And even, for example, even Elon Musk, like for me, like he's doing, if people don't know Elon Musk, like he created Tesla, now he's created SpaceX, now he's creating Neuralink. For me, this is alchemical process. He's not working internally. I would say he's an INTJ still, but still he's not doing it internally. It's still having a external thing, and it just looks like an external material thing, but it's not. So that's for me that's also alchemical process. So his goal will be also our people's goal later on, I feel like. So I just want to mention that.
Well, he probably has a little bit of sensate in it to be able to come up with all those things. But that's introverted thinkers are very interesting. If you read about the introverted thinking type. Well, Dawn, did you have any thing? Jan, I can't get YouTube going, but I will post it later. The recording, I can't get YouTube going live, so I will post it later. But Dawn, did you have any comments or not? You don't have to. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you, Gary, then. It's your...
Oh, I have last one comment.
Okay.
Yeah, when you're talking about a snake as the life symbol, is it like a universal collective unconscious symbol? Because it's quite interesting that it reminds me of the Kundalini awakening thing.
It
Is
is
it?
that there's
It's
another thing. It brings time into being. So life is time is the emergence of life out of time, the timeless dimension, and it's represented by the serpent, and then comes the dove, and then comes the soul. But you need all three. So, you've got the soul, which is the realm of images and projection. Then you have the serpent, which is the image of the life principle, which is what rescued us from Eden, not cursed us. It's not an original sin. It was actually the savior of being trapped in the timeless dimension. And then you have the spirit, which, again, if it isn't related to the serpent, then it's the spirit bird does not really help us that much, because it's really not uniting above and below. And then the soul, without this, if you don't unite the above and the below, and the serpent is independent from us, and the bird is independent from us, as it is in the patient, then you're sort of ruled by the unconscious affect of projection. You're like Joseph Campbell with Jackie Kennedy. Okay, well, Gary, it's all yours. I'm going to shut up. Okay, Adam, go ahead.
Okay.
Or did you want me to do this one? I can do this one.
No, I'm happy to. Yeah. Happy to subject everybody to this experiment. It looked like Kevin was about to say something. I don't know if you wanted to say one last thing.
Yeah, very quickly, please. It was just something to do with Maggie. She says about Kundalini awakening and so on. Yeah, so it just reminds me that the ego has the ability to move out in the external environment, and also has the ability to move into the internal environment. I mean, to think about it, that's so I'm trying to say that so even in alchemy, they used to replace the middle with a mirror, the middle with a mirror. And so the ego also stands somewhat in the middle realm. The very fact that you can choose between external, paying attention to what's something outside, and you can pay attention to something within. I think it says something about the ego stance. It's not this external and internal is somewhat illusionary. Eric Neumann talks about the unitary reality in which there is to sort of break this illusion apart, sort of. So so that's correct. So it's very I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's actually, I would say it's relevant to the exercise that we're going to perform. Which, by the way, all this stuff, like I said a moment ago, is just experimentation, I think. So, the dynamic a lot of the time is Gary and I sort of bounce ideas off each other. And this time, so what we've been doing a lot up until now is kind of using external supports to help us to get in touch with things that are maybe inside of us. So that sort of, goes to a little bit of what Kevin was saying, outside and inside, and the ego sort of being almost the mediator there. This exercise, sort of similar, but in that what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of lead you through a visualization. And the purpose of the visualization is to help us find within ourselves a spot where we can dialogue with what maybe you could call a deeper part of ourselves. And the depth to which we want to go or are able to go is up to each one of us. There's no right or wrong with any of this stuff. So what I'll do is I'm going to kind of help us all to calm down in case anybody needs that. And then sort of guide us through a visualization. And then we're going to reach a spot where we're going to have like maybe 5 minutes or so to dialogue internally with wherever we are or whatever we encounter. Then after that, I'll bring you back out and we can talk about the experience. We can go into specifics if we want. We don't have to. It's totally up to each one of us and what they feel comfortable sharing. So unless anybody has any major objections, I will begin the exercise now. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Just
Yeah.
one question. Should we write down our, like we have done the past, or should we, it's no point writing down in this exercise?
You know, I would say whatever feels comfortable to you. I would say the important thing is to be able to have the dialogue, and if writing it down facilitates that for you, then great. Yeah. Okay. So I would recommend closing your eyes, and I'll do the same. And so the first thing which is helpful in an exercise like this is to just kind of slow down our breathing. And take some really nice deep breaths. You know, maybe we've been holding in our breath and didn't even realize that. Now is an opportunity to just relax. So we're taking in nice deep breaths, letting it out all the way. Kind of oxygenating ourselves, relaxing ourselves at the same time. Okay. So continue to breathe at the rhythm that feels good to you. Now, it's even more than an image, it's kind of a feeling. Speak in the first person. My feet are on the ground. I feel a solid connection to the earth. The earth is huge, and I'm standing on her. I feel the waves of the ocean at my feet. Rhythmic waves on the sand. And I'm looking out into the ocean. I can see the horizon, which seems limitless. I feel myself lifting off of the ground and moving towards the ocean. Flying above the ocean. Flying. I can see behind me the sand on which I was standing receding into the background as I'm flying into the depths of the ocean, but still above the ocean, to a place where I'm all alone. I don't see anything in any direction except water. I am, flying and flying until I reach the center point where the ocean is deepest. I don't know what's down there. It's really, really deep. Is there a bottom? I don't know. Maybe there's one of these cracks that just leads downwards. How far does it go? What's down there? I don't know. But I, above the ocean, now plunge into it. Feet first. And I'm going down and down and down and down until I reach the point that I feel comfortable. A point where I feel comfortable and suspended in this ocean. And there, in this kind of a place of half light, or complete darkness, or light, or whatever works for each of us, I feel a presence. There's some kind of an other being here, a being who is very gentle and who is kind of like a caring and loving presence. Something very warm, loving about this being. So it's up to each one of us if this being starts to develop characteristics or doesn't, or has a voice or doesn't. How do I communicate with this being, with this presence? So now is the time for about 5 minutes where we can interact with this being, talk to it if we want to, touch it if we want to, communicate. What is it that it wants to tell us? What does it want to show us? And we can write this down, or we can just do it in our minds, whatever works. So each one of us can do this now. Okay, so very slowly, I'm going to bring us back out of this state. So we've been floating, suspended at the center of the ocean, at the depth that felt just right to us, and perhaps experiencing or not some kind of a presence there. Now, even though we're down in the depths of the ocean, we're going to take a deep breath. And strangely enough, find that we're able to inhale the water and it feels okay. So we inhale this substance all around us, this presence that we've been immersed in. And now we're ready to go back up out of the water. So we're going to rise, gradually, slowly, rising towards the light, towards the top of the ocean. Slowly, at the pace that works for us, until when we're ready, our heads break through the surface of the ocean, and once again, we're above the ocean. And strangely enough, even though we're in the center of the ocean, and it seems like there's no reference point, strangely enough, we are able to orient ourselves exactly and know exactly in which direction land is. So we point ourselves in that direction, and we start flying, feeling light and airy after having had this depth experience, until after a while we see that sand in which we were standing before. We approach it, come closer and closer, and gradually descend onto the surface until we can feel our feet touching once again the sand, and we feel the solidity beneath our feet. We open our eyes, and now we have the chance to share whatever we may have experienced, and I'll just leave it open. I'm not going to try to direct this too much. So go ahead and share. Yeah.
I'd just say it was just a beautiful experience. I mean, I was really into it the whole way. You know, the feet on the earth, the feeling the warm sea, making the sand watery near my feet, rising up into the air, going to the deepest point, you know, having the being emerge. I mean, what I I must be a slow typer, but I just said, over the deepest point, the water stirs. I see a form coming through the darkness. It emerges, it's a woman. I sink towards the surface and enter the water to be close to her. She gives me her hands and gazes into my eyes. Who are you? I ask. I am the feminine depths, the deepest point. I come to greet you and to give you my love. Oh, lovely one, thank you. Was so lonely here, and I was hoping that this vastness would have a voice and a form, and you are so lovely. Your eyes are electric, your face is like the goddess. Please tell me what is to become of me. You must determine that. I can help you, but only if you come here often, and we relate with each other often. What a lovely thought to come here often and to hear you and see you. And then I go down into the depths. It's just liquid air, and embrace her. And then I leave, I'll go back to the surface, fly back, and my feet are in the watery sand again on the earth. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. Thanks, Craig. Yeah.
Well, mine was pretty interesting. My active imaginations are really hard for me to have any sort of dialogue in, because they just totally take on a life of their own and just start just they're very there's a lot of movement. And so I'm down in the water, and this is the figure that comes to me, which was from a dream that I had. And so he shows up, and we just are holding hands, just spinning around through the water, and just spinning and spinning, and going up into the air and diving back down in the water. And I'm like, where'd you come from? He's like, well, I came from here, of course. I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And, I'm like, well, who are you? And we go up into the air and start going higher and higher into outer space. And he says, I'm the one that showed you this, which is another dream image. And then we come back down, and I was laying on my living room floor. And then he's laying next to me on the floor. And honestly, I don't even know if I can freaking make it through this without breaking down. But we're just holding hands, and I just asked him, like, are you going to be with me forever? He said, oh, yes, I will.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. It's really deep, deeply felt.
That's the power of of healing, of wholeness, of realizing that that we're not, the ego disconnected is not reality, is not totality.
I was flying around and imagining I was on that machine, that, the jet thing. It's kind of cool. And I was playing with it because I always want to be on one. And then all of a sudden it's like a Red Sea departing and then sinking in the bottom of the ocean kind of thing. Because I'm claustrophobic, so I cannot imagine it's like in the middle of the ocean. So I wake up several times. I have to get away from all the water so I can immerse. And then when you said there's like some creatures or some power shows up, I imagine it to be God. And the last time I experienced him, which was in my high school, a long, long time ago, he just showed up in when I was in the morning mass, and just two of us, and we were just singing a hymn, a very short hymn, which is "Sing to the Mountain." Very, very short one. But then I felt an immense, big presence of power and eternity, which is weird because, and then I was like, I think that's the happiest moment ever in my life. It's very peaceful, but it's so happy that that moment I realized that even though I was only in Form 2, which is not even high school yet, that material things is not what happiness is really about, like the physical thing isn't. And what's interesting is that I don't understand what it is, because I don't really believe in God at that time. I just used Bible to sleep, and I happened to be studying Catholic school. So, you know, the nuns always use Bible to wake me up, hit me on the head, kind of. You know? But anyways, so, you know, that this is the second time really I encounter him like that. Like in different ways I did encounter him, but this is exactly the time, like me and him only. So I'm asking him, if time is relevant, then, you know, how? Show me. Because last time you showed me is eternity. Yet it's only less than a few minutes. How could it be? Wow, it's eternity and it's just less than a few minutes. I don't understand. And then I was asking him if there are multiverse, because I don't know why, just my thinking mode is lighted up. And asking him about wormhole as well. And so all these questions just popping up. and and he just answered without an image, just a voice. Just observe and follow the flow. I think it's the water. I guess what he's pointing. And then the water starts to come in, then I have to wake up, because if not, I got drowned and, you know, claustrophobia. So that's all I get. Yeah.
Yeah, I can perhaps share mine. Yeah, I'm very bad with imagination as such, but this one got me. Like I have to admit. Um, oh, this one got me. I am because I'm really bad with imagination, and what I saw, like going into this depth, and I was going into the ocean, but you know, I ended up in depth of space below, basically. And what I saw was my future self, or the self that is, yeah, my future self. I was interacting with my future self, which is still alive. You know, the future self is, it's already alive. It's nothing that is, yeah. So I was interacting with him, just trying to feel him out and try to feel his hands. But there was no hands, it was just a feeling, you know. And when we touched each other, I felt really strong, like my heart really, like I could feel, you know, physically. Every time we touch each other, it's just, and yeah, so I was interacting with my future self, and it's there. And from that, I realized that, or the insight I get later on was that we are the archetypes, like we are living archetypes. We are typical. We are inborn typical pattern. And so we are their archetypes. And so we are their archetypes. So they are releasing themselves from us, basically, because we are the animals in that sense. We're still typical and so on. So I realized that we are the one buried in depth, and they are the one living.
I really think it's amazing what this little exercise, Adam, you are a master at it, but is what happens when we reduce the critical attention and go into that place. It's real. You know, one of the things I've been noticing, I've been reading my past active imaginations, and they are so moving. You know, not what I say, but what Charles being says, what Maggie's being says, what Kevin's being says. You know, is when I read it, is I just want to take their comments out and put them in my red book, and leave my crap out of it.
I can share. Um, a couple of things really. It was more of a feeling rather than a dialogue, and shapes as well. And so to start with, as I was going down into the depths, there seemed to be like a dark, long insect. Well, I didn't pay much attention to that, although I was aware of it on the fringes. I felt suspended, and then the more powerful image and sensation that I felt was to be enveloped in a shape that was like a very soft plant. Could be a coral, but it wasn't as hard as a coral. It was very, very soft. So so I was thinking, I sparked my imagination. So when I came out, so I just enjoyed resting in this shape. And then I came out of it, and I was thinking the word that was coming to me is fimbria. And the connection that I have with fimbria is the fallopian tube. At the end of the fallopian tube are the fimbria, and they're suspended in the pelvic cavity, and they just kind of suspend there like so. And of course, they collect up, it's where the sperm goes. Well, the egg and the sperm, and that all happens, yeah. So, yeah, so whilst you were talking, I was I did a little drawing. It's very naive and a bit maybe obvious, but that was a feeling that I got. It wasn't erotic. It was not erotic. Yeah. It was
creating. It was the engendering, creating,
like fertile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one image that is the living image of newness, of the new thing emerging, and I'm part of the process of the new thing emerging.
I could share my own experience, in my own case. Even though I was leading the exercise, so to speak, I didn't. Well, I guess the presence that I felt was a very sensate one, which for me is a little bit unusual. But it just felt like a physical presence, but inside of me. So. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a very warm presence. This is interesting because maybe it's giving me insight about myself inside in some ways. But it was something very tactile. I just felt like, I could feel it. So it was very solid in that regard. I'm not sure where that's going to lead as far as like having a dialogue, but there's definitely some contact there, literally contact,
Well, I'll throw mine out there, which is probably the least interesting of all of these. So, but I guess the one interesting thing is it relates back to, you know, some of the things I've seen coming up in the dialoguing with painting stuff, which is, you know, which is making me think that, you know, which is relating back to dreams. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is starting to actually cross over into, you know, some psychological stuff, you know, that's kind of like cross fertilizing. But mine, it's like I'm waiting for a message, and there's this snake that's swimming around, you know, friendly snake, and we're just looking at each other, and it's like the feeling that I have to go deeper and deeper. So this whole time, it's like about the time that you brought us out, I was like completely unconscious, you know, like a meditation where you have no thought going through your mind. So, you know, if it had gone on for another hour, I might have gotten something. but yeah, it was just like, it was strange that way. I mean, just no thought, nothing, you know, just kind of watching each other.
Thank you. You know, if any of us who feel less comfortable actually speaking want to type something out, that's, you know, feel free, and one of us can read it. Just give a moment in case anybody wants to do that. I guess in the meantime, you know, so these exercises, they're not anything that Gary and I have like read in the book. So I think we're all like, I keep on saying this every time, but I think we're all like qualified to offer these sort of things. So if, you know, if somebody feels like there's some aspect that's, you know, I don't want to say not being addressed. Yeah, maybe not being addressed, or something that they feel like is numinous or really meaningful in their lives. And if you want to like explore it, you know, this second half of the group could be the opportunity to do that. So, you know,
It's working very well. I mean, it's just, I mean, it just gives me a taste of reducing critical attention, and it's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. Annette, did you have any comments or not? You don't have to, like as Adam said.
it looks like, assuming Annette is a woman, and correct me if I'm wrong, she just wrote, "Hi, I just joined. Hi." It was a very nice, deep, reconnecting place for me with a familiar group I saw in the depths. It felt like a sea garden. So.
Beautiful. And Annette and Dawn, if you could put your email addresses in the text, we'll just add you to the email group. And I mean, that's where we kind of send out, yeah, thank you, Annette. We send out, you know, materials to read if you don't happen to have a copy or whatever. But Adam, you are so fabulous at this. This is absolutely, I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but I was there in every, I mean, it was serious. I was there. Well, next time I'll just read, unless anybody has anything else.
Oh, I just wanted to say, well, my thought when you said, you know, I was there. I think what was really special for me is it came here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And since we were kind of on the topic of images today, I just kind of wanted to share this image that it just kept knocking on the door of my consciousness and just kept popping up over and over and over again. And I wanted to share it with you guys because it seemed to be coming from a genuine place. So that's my hamster sailing me.
Wow.
In the ocean. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's
Yeah.
the instinctive part of yourself. The instinctive part of yourself is within your vessel,
Yeah.
sailing on the depths, the feminine depths. So
I don't know why I chose to give myself shoes, but
well,
You have shoes?
yeah, I drew shoes on myself, but the rest of me was totally naked.
Well,
I'm not sure.
you need a standpoint. You know, that's what the shoes represent. You know, I always tell my wife, what kind of strange beings are there that can't walk on the earth without foot coverings? You know, I mean, it's a very unusual being. And by the way, Adam, you're totally right on the instincts are images too. You know,
Uh-huh.
and then
Yeah.
what about the spirit of play? You know, puppies and kittens and even goats, little baby goats. You know, I mean, so I totally withdraw. And yes, beautiful. Well, anyway, well, just next time I'm try to bring in some of the more really beautiful things about reducing critical attention that are from the Red Book and from the Transcendent Function. And what Jung says, why do we want to do this? And then he tells us why. You know, so anyway, so beautiful. I would come to any of your groups, Adam or Gary. You guys are fabulous. Anyway, thank you. And by the way, thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, Charles, and Dawn and Annette. And Dawn, if you could, I don't know if, oh yeah, you did send it. Okay, and Jan especially too. I mean, Jan is the silent glue that holds everything together. She's kind of the feminine presence that keeps us going here. Okay, well, I'll see you guys all, I guess, on September 13th, and Friday the 13th comes on a Sunday this year. So we'll see you then. Okay.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you
See you,
all.
everybody.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.